Belin Fieldson. That's all right. So I'm going to talk today about some techniques using Google Apps Script to access public data sources. Now, you guys have all probably used Google Apps Script a little bit at least. And if you look at this first page here, you'll see that there is a short link at the bottom. And if you open this page up, then you'll be able to go along with me in the presentation. It's really handy because you can do some copying and pasting. So, my name is Belin. I build websites, I build APIs and data adapters. And this presentation is about how you can build an API in Google Docs right now while you're paying attention to this speech, nominally paying attention to this speech. The very first thing that I'm going to talk about with this is that data modeling. When you model data as a programmer, you end up creating all sorts of interesting structures that other people are going to build using on their websites or their web applications, mobile applications. And it's really difficult sometimes to get a proper data model built for the app that you want to get built. You have to go and add parts to it, remove parts from it, and every time you're making changes to your data model, that might be some major changes all across your backend API. So I built a way of building your data model inside of Google Apps Script. Now, the advantage of this is that Google Apps Script has an enterprise infrastructure for absolutely no cost. You can load all of your information into a Google Doc. It's going to be available 99.9% of the time without any hosting and with a high-speed data infrastructure. The same kind of infrastructure that you would be able to build using a NoSQL system like Mongo or Redis. I don't know if anybody has used those in their own data adapters. But it also has the advantage of having a built-in online code editor and code versioning along with data versioning. So, like, if somebody messes up your data, you can go back to the previous version of the data inside of the spreadsheet just via the regular interactive tools. This is really handy. It takes a lot of work to have historic data to a MySQL data adapter. And if anybody has tried to do that, you will know. There are also, this isn't all like the land of roses and honey though. There's problems with Google Script. One of them is feature deprecation. Anybody familiar with feature deprecation? Okay. Like, they introduced this great tool called Google Script DB a couple of years back, and then they deprecated it almost immediately, for example. Most of what I built here is based on turning Google Apps back into Script DB. So this will allow you to do a NoSQL data source inside of Google Apps, managed by your spreadsheet. Another big problem with Google Apps and deploying to it is that there isn't a whole lot of data available for your routing process. Now, if you build a web app, you know the API is going to have to answer like posts, gets. There's going to be basic authentication, there's going to be advanced authentication. You don't get any of that here. You're just going to post and get. And then you have to work within that in order to build your app as securely as possible and with as advanced a system as you can manage. Another big problem is that the deployment procedure is incredibly awkward and strange. And I'm going to take everybody through that today. So if you know, if you pay attention, you'll be able to do it again in the future yourself. And the ugly girls. I put an example down there at the bottom. Oh my God, copy that out right now, please. Go ahead, we'll spend the rest of the presentation with everybody asking me to spell it. So this is my solution, is a library. Within Google Apps, we can add a library and put a whole bundle of our code. You don't have to copy all of this out right now. I'm going to put it back up when you actually do need it. Again, this is the source code for the library. Now, I actually put this and shared this publicly, which is a step that we don't usually go through with creating libraries as web developers. Yes? Oh, I'm sorry.
Or you can put it somewhere we can copy it from, like,
yes. This URL is on the link, and if you go to the web address of this presentation, I'll give you the presentation address again at the end, and that way you'll be able to reference it. Okay. Okay. It's okay. So disadvantages, ugly URLs. So this is the library. library. This is the source of it. If you go to the short link, you'll be able to actually look at the source in Google Apps script and examine what I'm talking about in this next part. Now, this next part that I'm talking about, all of you developers, if you're looking at the code, you'll be able to follow along with what I'm saying. But if you're lost, just give me until the next slide. I'll come back to it. So GF features a function level cache. When you access data in a system, that data takes a moment to be pulled, and that function then has the information in it. But that's only for that call. If, in my system, I added a cache to the function, so successive calls of the function will return the same data that it gathered the first time. This is because I'm a lazy programmer, and many times I will, in my data model, invoke the listing of data, and then start making modifications to it, and then invoke the listing of data again and again and again. And poor programming. I can't count on everybody being a better programmer than me. So I added the function level cache to keep everything fast, even when you're doing it poorly. There's also a built-in polling structure, so that if you're a big fan of live data acquisition, you can do a simple live data acquisition model. The polling structure uses memoization, and we'll go over that in just a few. There's a simple router built in. It uses the action parameter of the GET request that you send into the data model, and it converts that over to the key in the router, and then runs the function in the router according to what it is that you have asked for. There's built-in data conversion routines, so you can add you can add JSON data into a cell in your spreadsheet, and when it outputs, it will have all of the keys and all of the assembled data as you put it together in that cell. It works really, really fast in that data conversion. There's also a built-in write method, so that when you get to the point where you're writing information back into your sheet, you can use a built-in GF function. This is really useful because, man, it's hard to write data into a Google Sheet using their script solutions. It's also fully commented with .vault comments, so you'll be able to get code hinting when you included the library. So that, as I said, that's the technical stuff. I'm so sorry for anybody that is not interested in hearing the technical stuff. Back over to easy stuff. Build a spreadsheet. This is an example of a spreadsheet. It's, gosh, really hard to see up here. But you can see there's cells across the top that all have their names in the header. And then each of the lines is an item. And this is represented by my system as a data object with individual objects with keys that label each of the items. After you built your data model in your spreadsheet, just like this, where your columns are represented and your rows are represented, then you've got an output system. Like in this example, we've got sales, shipping, and inventory building together into one quarterly earnings report, and then that goes out to the GA interface. I recommend you separate all your data and all of your data sources in this way. There's got to be a location where you keep your data source, and then a location where you keep your data reports. And then this would be attached into your data report. So as long as you've got some kind of a system behind the way that you're storing your spreadsheets, then you can use that to create your data model. And so I protected a couple of sheets within any given sheet. Users and roles are important a lot of times if you are establishing an API or anything like that. And because I use those names of sheets really often, I protected them. In other words, they don't get dumped out in a data request. So that's a whole lot of going over it. We're actually going to start building a spreadsheet now. So if you have Google Docs open, then open a spreadsheet that you would like to make into a data source. It should have all of your column headers at the top. If you don't want to use your own spreadsheet, then you can use the example that I have created. But you should copy your spreadsheet's URL if you're going to use your own spreadsheet for the purpose of this example now. So if you'd like to add the library to your system, you open up the spreadsheet and then click on Tools and then Script Editor. It's going to come up with a bunch of options. It shows this block right here. And you'll want to select Blank Project. basically delete, but before you delete it, save it once. You want to rename it, and then you'll have the file name, my Gia project or whatever else you'd like to call it. Once you've got that saved, then you go to your resources and libraries, and this is where you have to copy this long ass code. And now, yeah, I've got it on the next page too, and I'm going to talk a little bit about libraries while anybody who does want to copy that out is copying it. Google put this function in, it was experimental last year, and it's now no longer experimental. You can write your own library by adding a whole bunch of code, basically unstructured code, and all of the functions that you put into it become available as library properties and methods. So if you write a variable into your library, then it becomes a property. If you write a function, then it becomes a method of your library. And if you comment it, then it becomes a public method or variable of your library. Really, really handy feature right there, because it means you don't have to write the same code over and over and over again. Hence, Google it again. So, anybody who did manage to copy, make sure that you leave your identifier as Gia, because inside of the page it will set all of your script as being accessible through that identifier. So you can just type Gia dot, and it will give you all of the functions of Gia inside of your script. Sure. This one? Okay. Okay, so once you've got the library added, then all of the features in it are available. And it only requires 2 lines of code to actually get all of the data out of a spreadsheet and put it into a public data adapter. Those 2 lines of code are, first off, setting the local ID of the spreadsheet that you want to access. Now, that spreadsheet that you copied the URL of before, you'll want to paste that onto your page and set the unique part of its URL as the spreadsheet ID. Now, if you don't know what I mean by the unique part of its URL, that's in the page that said what it is. That's the string of about 28 characters that are all randomized in there. So get that information and put that into the string that it's setting the local ID as. And then there's a return function that you have to use to map your doGet function. So pass the event of the doGet into the Gia doGet. Now, that's everything. That makes it use the default router to hand out the basic all data routine on every single page inside of the spreadsheet. So that is pretty handy. So here's all of the code together. And as well as a function, it also has a local ID of a default document that I created myself. So if you don't have a spreadsheet that you'd like to report from, this is a public spreadsheet that you can use as a demonstration. So that's it as far as programming goes. You don't have to do any other programming to get access to your data. There's a couple of procedures left over to actually publish. In order to publish, you have to save your version, and this is what I was talking about earlier, how it's really difficult to actually get your deployment out. After you've saved your version, then you can actually, this is manage versions and save version, and you don't even have to name it, you just have to give it a version. And when you click save new version, it'll save version 1, hopefully. You're not on version 3 already, but I would do this kind of thing. And then after you've got that, you have to authorize. And this is really crazy. They do their OAuth 2 authorization at this step. So you have to authorize your account to be able to run on Google Script with this stuff. So you go to the run command at the top and execute doGet. It will bring up this authorization required screen and then allow you to accept the authorization. If you don't do this part, then your public data adapter will only return an error. Which, if you like errors. So you can also, at this point, you can publish your app. There's click at the top, there's the publish button, and then there's the option to deploy as web app. And then they actually have this screen that says, this is not the usual yada yada. Okay? Like it says, please read this carefully. It's not the usual, yada yada. So what you do is you copy the web app URL out of that whole box up there, and then save your version, whatever the latest version is, and always execute the web app as yourself. But the person who has access is anyone. If you don't set it like this, then you've made a private data adapter, which is good. You've got a private data adapter. Share it with your friends, only your friends. So let's see. So at this point, when you press update, you are deployed. You've got a complete deployment of all of your data adapter, and you can access it publicly. You will put together your own interface. I have a couple of interfaces that I have built. One of them is in JavaScript, one of them is in jQuery, and one of them is in AngularJS. They get more and more complicated as we proceed into that area. I've also got a couple of web pages that are in this example set that you can go to yourself that in most cases are fully open source, as in all of the data, all of the information behind them is not like the fiber press, and you can go through it. It's really easy to read because I commented on it. So CodePen contains these sketches of all of these various mechanisms for accessing these APIs. The first one, JavaScript, is really simple. Runs, grabs data via JSON, and runs its callback on a JSON key mechanism. I would recommend it if you're not already using a JavaScript framework, and you don't have any kind of way to access endpoints already. And that's the only way that you really want to use a pure JavaScript JSON key adapter. Most of us are using some sort of framework at this point. jQuery, anybody like jQuery? I'm a big fan. I like jQuery. Yeah, woo! Promises. It'll access your JSON key, and then on a promise-based architecture, return that data into another function that's on the page, and it works great. You can drop a template language into it and display your data using whatever format you want. I regularly recommend it, but if you want the absolute Cadillac of development, check out Angular. Wow, guys, you can just take a data object, drop it into Angular, and then have it display on the page and just constantly update. So the polling model that I built for my own system here means that as soon as something changes on my spreadsheet, it changes on all of the clients that have my page open. Well, not as soon, it's within about a minute, because the poll happens every minute or so. And we're allowed to do that because we have an enterprise level data source that any number of people can access at the same time without us having to pay for all of those accesses. So polling is suddenly a possibility inside of it, whereas normally it's not something that you can do on a larger app. This is a demonstration I have out on the web. It runs inside of Google Apps, and it uses the same architecture on a Angular backend. It's basically a pretend place that you can buy any kind of offered food, and it has a configurator built into it. These are where you have options that change the values of things, and also adjust how you manage your inventory in your store. It's just a demonstration. Now, this is a great site. It's beanstalkinteractive.com. Check it out if you need website development done. It's all done in Angular, and it also uses the Geo backend in the same way. My own personal website also is all full of jokes, poems, and various dead ends and poor links. You can also play all of my broken games there. So check that out also. But those are not compressed. You can just get straight into the code and check it out. The one Beanstalk one is, sorry guys, that's part of my work. I can't just leave everything. And then this is my last slide. I'm sorry, it's kind of an orphan. I wanted to talk about write operations. You guys like to write data to your spreadsheets too. And if you put it into a JSONP portal, then you're really asking for someone to hack your living crap out of you. Because it's possible it's a client-side data connection, and if you leave it totally open and accessible to a write procedure, then you're going to get all of your data filled up, and it's going to start turning into junk. So you have to build a structure that authenticates properly, and there's lots of ways to do that. You aren't allowed to use basic authentication, but you can use a two-step procedure for a token generation, where you can give them back a token and then use that token to authenticate them in all of their various requests. And if they don't have a good token, then you run them back through your token authentication. It's a basic process with APIs, and I'm sorry I didn't outline more of it here. That's it. This is the URL for the presentation, so if you didn't get a chance to follow along with your computer, I would totally copy that because you should be able to still follow along later on. The library is going to stay open source, and they keep on updating it, so there will be additional features available for you to use in there also. That's the conclusion of my presentation. If you have any questions, I can answer them now.